26.
Wow.
39 years of service to the town of Estes.
Wow.
49.
You're starting to sound like
88.
Greg White.
Yeah, really.
Okay, we are on the air. This is the special joint study session between the Town Board of Trustees and Estes Valley Fire Protection District Boards of Directors, July 15th, 2025, from 3 p.m. to 4:30 p.m. right here in the Town Hall boardroom. So this meeting is underway. We have one topic on the agenda. This is merely a study session, opening the conversation. This is a topic that has actually been batted around for quite a while now, probably in the neighborhood of a couple of years at least. And so this is the opening of our conversation, and we have an opportunity to hear from Travis here in a second as to kind of the details and the logic and reasoning behind it. So without further ado, I think I'll pass it over to Travis to kind of describe the landscape, and then we'll have open discussion.
Travis, can we do a reminder about the mics first?
I was going to start with that. So just an early reminder, these mics in this setup, the round table setup, these are always on. So side conversations are going to come up on the recording, make it harder to understand. So if we could just limit the side conversations, knowing that these are always on when that on-air signal is on.
That was my duty to tell you that, but it's good. And yeah, so notice if you're cursing under your breath or something, it will pick it up. So.
Well, thank you all for being here today. As Mayor Hall mentioned, we're really here today in the spirit of exploring some new opportunities and really some new needs from the town standpoint. I do want to start with that. No bones about it. This conversation has been instigated by the town's need for additional resources to fund the construction of a police department facility. As most of you are aware, back when the town and the fire district separated in terms of the fire district going off to become an independent entity with an elected board, at that time the town, through an intergovernmental agreement with the newly formed fire district, agreed to provide a percentage of the then 4% sales tax to the fire district moving forward. Back when that originally happened, it made a lot of sense because you wouldn't want a destination-based community to fund fire protection solely on the back of residents and businesses. We, of course, want our very large visitor population that also generates a lot of our fire and EMS calls to help fund that service. At the time, fire districts were not allowed under state statute to levy a sales tax. So the only opportunity to get assistance from the visitor population was through the town's ongoing contribution of sales tax to the fire district. No longer is our fire districts in the state of Colorado limited by state statute. Actually in 2024, through a Senate bill, the state legislature expanded the revenue opportunities of fire districts throughout the state, allowing them to impose sales taxes with, of course, consent of the voters. So as we approach the decision and the discussion of funding a new police station, one of the sources of revenue that came up in discussion was the existing transfer of that 7% of the original 4% sales tax to the fire district. I do want to be very clear to start off with that at no time did I hear any of the town board members say, yeah, let's cut the fire district off and save that money just for the town's use. I don't think that's why we're here today. We're here in the spirit of collaboration and wanting to discuss options moving forward now that this sales tax opportunity is available to the district that would allow a broader swath of the district to participate in that sales tax financing and allow the town through increasing revenue by retaining more of that, potentially more of that revenue that is currently sent to the fire district to fund a new police station. So all of that background set, what I've heard from the town board in forming this study session was a desire to discuss this with the fire district, to talk about options for moving forward with this consideration, and a desire to not leave the fire district hanging. There's not a desire to put the fire district in a point where the fire district may not have the resources it needs to meet its mission. That's very important to everybody here at this table, and I know it's very important to to the police chief and I, as well as to the fire chief. So with that background, I'm happy to answer any questions you all might have, but we are interested in furthering this discussion about what it might look like for the fire district to levy its own sales tax that covers the fire district as a whole, and the town to use the funds that we're currently transferring to the fire district to help fund a portion of the new debt service on a new police facility.
Questions, comments, Scott?
I do. First of all, I got to correct you on it. Wasn't the town that come up with the agreement to give the fire department the 7% of this 4% collected? It was the voters. The voters in our plan that we had that to go to the county that they approved had to go to the voters to approve that model of funding, and the voters approved that model of funding. It wasn't the town. The town then had to make an agreement because of that vote to give us that 7%. So it was really the voters that approved this model.
I'm curious which voters, county, town?
It was everybody within the fire district. So
So it
town,
was the formation of, it was
Forma-
the voting to establish the fire
that's
district.
correct. When we voted to establish the fire district, part of that was
Part
the
of it
funding
was the funding.
of how it was going to be funded, which was approved by the county. And it had to be by all the voters. We couldn't just say, no, you're going to have to start paying. So they are the ones that looked at the different models that we had. First model we looked at was just doing property tax because that's all we could do. And that didn't go because we had to be like 6 mills or something. So we went to try 2 other tries. One was creating a fund or a charge for people when we responded to calls. Well, that went really well until we had a barn fire, and then they got a bill for like $50,000 or $60,000 or something, and then everything hit the
that
fan,
doesn't work so well.
and then we had the fire downtown and the mall fire, and that's when we were able to get it passed. But it was with this funding mechanism of having the town provide that percentage of sales tax that the voters approved.
What ballot question was that?
I don't remember. I hardly remember.
I don't remember the sales tax. It might be. I don't remember the sales tax being part of that. I remember when you went for the fire district. I was actually against it, but I have my other reasons. But I don't remember the sales tax actually being written in that bill. So I guess we should see that
Yeah,
for sure.
and that's probably good. And I could be mistaken from what I remember, and it's been
And
a
it
long
could have
time.
been. Yeah, it could have been.
But I know it was tied to that funding mechanism. That's how we sold it to the voters.
Right,
that
yeah.
It was going to be the sales tax was going to be provided by the visitors, and that's for their portion of providing fire protection. Because a lot of the services were provided to the visitors, and then the residents provided it through property tax.
Yeah, I remember the vote. John?
They kind of answered the question. I was just going to say, you always see it come up on the voter ballot to get more money for the fire department and stuff like that. And everybody votes yes. How do we go to the public with it and be like, okay, we know you voted to give all this money to the fire department, but now we want to switch it and give it to the police department and then get you more taxes to pay for the fire department.
Yeah, that's why we need to
So
validate and
that's-
take a look
yeah.
at that ballot issue. What year
Travis,
was that?
Can you separate, I think there's a little bit of confusion, I know in the community, between the 1A collection and the sales tax that we're talking about is part of, the town collects 5%. So it's part, and the numbers on this, I'm sure, but the town collects 5%. This has nothing to do with the tax we just approved.
Correct. This
That
has
is
nothing
by
to do
itself
with.
solid, secure, not changing for the duration.
Correct. This agreement dates back to when the town and the fire district parted ways back in 2010 or so, and it is the 4% of the sales tax that's not subject to the ongoing renewal. The 1A, the percent that we send you all for fire mitigation, is not part of the conversation.
Oh, no, I wasn't talking about the 1A. I'm talking about we presented it to the taxpayers before 2010, whenever it was, if it was 1990. That's what they voted on to do, and now
Yeah, and
we're
so
trying to change all that.
we'll need to go look at that ballot language, and I will add one caveat in there is that decision was made back when the fire district did not have the ability to levy its own sales tax.
That's correct.
So I think that to me, that's the big change that has precipitated this conversation is, frankly, if that change had not been made at the State House, I don't think we'd be here today, because I think everybody around this table probably realizes that the visitor population has to be able to contribute to our fire protection.
Right.
But I think the question of how do we handle this moving forward, and what's the most equitable way to handle sales tax across the valley when we're talking about funding a district that encompasses much more than the town limits. That is a question that I think the voters would like to weigh in on. And as I mentioned earlier, I don't think we would be in a situation where there wouldn't be a safeguard for the fire district in terms of you're going to get left hanging with having to come up with $1.3 million worth of financing out of thin air. But I think the board and certainly the town is interested in talking now that we have this new alternative that's been given to us by the state. Does it make more sense for the fire district operations to be paid for by the constituents of the fire district through sales and use tax or through sales tax versus just being paid by the constituents in the town through sales tax? And of course, people from the county that are shopping in town. But a good example is if you're a county resident and you buy a car, that sales tax goes to the county and the state. It does not help fund the fire district. If a city resident buys a car, a town resident purchases a car, they pay sales tax that does go to the fire district. So there is a little bit right now of a tax policy question, and that's not through anyone's fault. I think that was how the system was set up for the longest time. And now that we have this new alternative, I think the police station and the town's need, and I want to be very clear with that, the town's need for new money has raised this question and driven this conversation, but it is raising the question of, is this the best tax structure moving forward, where the fire district relies on a smaller geographic entity to collect taxes and help fund the fire district services?
So we had this discussion several years ago, and we need to check on that. But as I remember, I don't think the ballot language actually included the 7%. It was just an intergovernmental agreement. Because we did go back and check on that, but that is something we need to follow up on.
I'm just trying to pull it up right now. I mean, the debrucing was part of it, which is not having to do
Right.
this. But I'm just looking at, they said there's 3 questions on the ballot. One was funding, one was debrucing. I can't find the third one. So, just looking right
So
now.
if you find it, yeah. And as Travis said, one part of it is the equity thing of, that was the whole problem we had before. We did the charging for people outside of the town limits, which I remember doing that when I was the county manager, and it was that barn. That barn just was a disaster, more ways than one. And looking at that, but the equity of places like the Y doesn't collect anything to support the fire district, Mountain Shop, any of the shops outside of the town limits. Basically, you're getting a ride on the town to support this. I think it's the only special district that's only funded within the town limits and not covering its whole boundaries. Everything else, they collect a tax over their boundaries.
I'm thinking I'm finding it might be 2009, perhaps, when that ballot.
It was about then, yeah.
Yeah. Finding letters on it.
And when this first came up, I brought it to Travis. We talked about it. Police wasn't on the radar at that point, and even thought maybe we could look at that, where we would actually lower our sales tax by an equal amount, because you would raise more money for a lesser sales tax because you do include the outside ones than you do inside the town, and some way to kind of manage that as well. Now we have this other need where we might have to go out and ask for that for a public safety issue as well. But that's my recollection how it went, and also it comes down to the tax equity issue of the people in the district. All the people in the district paying for the fire district, not just the people in the town. I know there's always the argument, well, everybody shops in town. Well, that's true.
Let's make an assumption for a second. If that ballot issue did not include the prescribed 7%, and therefore that was not a vote of the people on that, but just for the IGA, does that change the course of the discussion? It certainly would change the course of changing it.
Well, I think Scott's point of view is that it was sold that way, regardless of whether it's in the ballot language. So this would represent a change in the message to the community.
And I don't think we could have excluded the 1A tax if it had been in the ballot language saying we definitely give 7% of our sales tax to fire district. Then we would have been required to give 7% of the 1%.
So what portion of that 1% though goes My understanding was that part of it goes to fire mitigation, some within the town, and some that goes to the fire district. Is that correct?
So so there's a portion that's carved out for the utility to do fire mitigation work in the
Right,
utility that
right.
goes to the
Tree
power
cable
communications
system.
fund. The remainder of that goes to the separate piece goes to the fire district for wildfire mitigation activities. So, and then I think jumping back just to Member Dorman's earlier point, I think even if it was in the service plan, there's no changing this setup realistically without
Oh, with 1A.
elections.
No.
You know, the town to get additional funding for a police facility needs an election. We believe that the timeline will likely push, and this is staff talking, not the town board, will likely push us to ask the town board to consider a ballot measure in January of this coming year, certainly before the fire district has had time to really parse out what their future financial needs may or may not be. So likely if we pursued that, we would be exploring a contingent sales tax that if the fire district were to successfully implement their own sales tax, then that money could stay with the town and be used to eliminate that new sales tax. So all to say that I don't really see a scenario here, just from a pragmatic standpoint, that doesn't entail going to the voters.
Right.
I think the voters are going to have to weigh in on this one way or the other, as is appropriate when you're talking about spending a lot of tax dollars.
Well, the voters, and I'm a voter, certainly fire, EMS, police, I mean, those are critical services that tend to enjoy very strong support when they come to the voters. We haven't changed population much. We all know we're kind of limited on that. My general sense is with the well-educated population, probably get fair support, but that's just a crystal ball prediction. So I think this is something that we should talk through what the details might be, but this is just an open study session. We're just opening the topic at this point.
You know, another thing that I look at is the property tax for the fire district came really close to passing. How many votes was it?
It's like 8.
It was really
Eight.
close.
Really
Wow,
small.
that is very close.
And there were just a few things that went on, I think, that hurt it. I was an election judge and counted those ballots. To be that close on a property tax, because people hate property taxes. I think a sales tax, because particularly for us, because the visitors pay it. And frankly, the timing was bad because the fire district had just the weekend before the election let the chief go. And that people don't like to vote for things that are in turmoil. And maybe not very many people, but maybe 8 might have made a difference. So came really close on the property tax. And I think a sales tax is a lot easier to sell in this community.
Well, you know, I can tell you when I said I voted no for the fire district, I did before it was town board. But part of that was feeling like the people that were in town limits were getting shafted. We were already getting the services. I'm just saying how it felt. We were already getting the services, and now we had to pay for the outside people to have the services. Not that it's all, we can argue that fact all you want, but I tell you that was a feeling. So if it comes back as being a sales tax that's district-wide, it just feels a little more even, and if you can do a lower number and people feel like they're actually getting a bargain for it, I think it makes sense to me. If it's, the possibility of a district-wide tax has never even been discussed, like town-wise or whatever, but it just seems a little bit more even-fared, I guess, than, just as a layperson looking at it. I'm not talking about technically, I'm talking a layperson who felt like, gosh, we're already paying for these services, now I got to pay more, So that would take that out of the mix if we went for that. That's my point.
And I gotta say, I feel for this new board, all 5 are new board members. That's just really tough to try to get your handle on that. You don't have a strategic plan that is finalized. You probably haven't seen a budget yet, other than the current year's budget. And there's a lot to digest in this, and how it relates to each other and the government. You know, ideally, I would like to see it some sort of, I don't think this can work here, but a joint venture. One of the things that I've noticed about it, Colorado is how siloed it is with all of the different districts and different entities that make it difficult to implement anything on a consolidated basis, which is what we're trying to do with fire service in the area, but also police service. So I don't know. It's a lot to put on your plate to even think about at this point, and I think there's a whole lot of stuff that you guys have to do before you can really focus on this. That's what, you know, you've got a chief issue, you've got all this other stuff. So unfortunately, the early time to meet was the best time for everybody. So we had this meeting in a really short order. So
Well, it's good to get the topic out. I mean,
yeah, that's really.
yeah.
I had a county assessor tell me once, we don't have silos, we have cylinders of excellence.
But you gotta really, I mean, I look at the board as being new people, but they're not new people. I mean, Scott, I don't even know what Scott was the
Oh, I
fire
know.
chief. I
I
mean, there's a
know.
lot of experience
He's
on the
hilarious.
boards, they can do it.
Cool. Thanks for the vote of confidence.
Yeah, I full, because y'all can do this, y'all have great experience.
Yeah, nothing denigrating. It's just, you know, I know I've been a trustee now for a little over a year, and I only feel like recently I've got my sea legs, and it's got to be the same for you guys to some extent. Not for you so much, but yeah.
Well, for what it's worth, and maybe it's not worth much at this point, I was able to pull up the court order declaring the organization of the fire district, and that's from November of 2009. It lays out all 5 ballot questions that were on that 2009 ballot and all of the results. So just maybe it's just a point of passing interest now. But the first question of the 5 was 3 directors for terms to expire May 2012. The next one was 2 directors for terms to expire May 2010. Then, shall the district be formed and organized? The 4th one was the mill levy, and the 5th one was the debrucing. So that's what it was. I'm not seeing anything in here about sales tax or 7% or anything like that. Again, that might have been part of the messaging.
That was in the service plan, I believe, to the county, that we had to, and that, like we said, that's what we used to sell it.
It was in the paper. I looked up in the paper, so it was sold that way.
And like I mentioned earlier, if it's sold that way, it's not changing without additional voter input. And I think that the change in 24 that allows that money, that almost $1.3 million now, to be borne over a broader set of impacted stakeholders, is probably a good reason to reconsider whether that financing strategy still makes the most sense.
I wonder if it wouldn't be a hard sell because you have the people that are in the district in the county that are getting the fire for free.
No kidding.
It's the
And
opposite
they
side
don't,
of the
they
city.
don't want to pay, and then you have the people in the city, and they're like, well, we're already paying. Why should we have to pay more?
So the folks within the city likely would end up paying less.
Well, they'd still have to pay that percentage of sales tax, correct?
They would be paying
pay
the.
it now,
Yeah, you're right. So
they
they
have
would be
an
paying the
additional.
same amount of sales tax, knowing that that was
Right.
more term limited because it's for the police station, and then they would be coming. But you're right. The total tax load of a resident in the valley would increase.
Right.
And as I started this conversation, if you want to find new money to do things like pay down debt on a police station, that there's really not a way to do that without new money or significant cuts to existing services.
So how would that look if it did go on the ballot? How would that look to? I mean, how would you put that out there in words? How would you present it to the taxpayers?
So likely if the town board wishes to move forward with a police station, given the varying election timelines and assuming that the fire district is not interested in talking about this November, which I think is probably a fairly safe assumption, the town staff would likely be asking the board in January to consider a sales tax, an increase in sales tax to fund a police station. And within that wording, and we'd have to discuss this with the town attorney to make sure that we get the wording right and that it doesn't run afoul of any of our various regulations like Tabor, in that wording would be language that if the fire district levies its own sales tax, and so the town no longer needs to send that 4% or the 7% of the 4% sales tax to the fire district, then that new sales tax would go away. So effectively, the town would be funding the fire or the police station, and if the fire district took it on to create a broader base for the fire district sales tax, that new town sales tax would go away. We would retain that money that we currently send to the fire district to continue to pay down that debt without that new sales tax.
Okay.
So I don't think there's a scenario where the town, quote unquote, hides the fact that we need more money to pay for a police station.
And could we put a sunset on that too as well?
That tax would likely have a sunset, so that
Which
even
is
if the fire
7%
district
doesn't now.
correct, it
It's
would
in
be a single
perpetuity.
for a single purpose. It wouldn't be in perpetuity. It would be until very much like the recreation center, until the bonds are paid off or a certain date. So I do want to be clear that, because I can understand if you're just hearing this from Travis reaching out to the fire district, hey, we'd like to talk about the sales tax that we currently send you. Like, oh, well, the town clearly wants to keep their money and force the fire district to go ask the voters for more money. That's not our intent at all, and that's certainly not the intent that the board wished to convey when they asked for this study session.
Yeah,
we
the
have-
additional money is
do we
for
have
the
any
police
sense
department.
of what the impact of the state taking over the Stanley will be? Obviously, has property tax implications, has sales tax implications, I'm sure, because of the building of the film center and the expansion of the hotel and all of that. How is that going to likely impact our budget? That's what I'd be like to know, because it's all a matter of having enough money overall to do what we want to do. And if that's going to create I know it's probably a drain on property taxes, including for the fire district, but it's, unless you have a payment in lieu of taxes program, which I understand we do not have at the moment. So how's that going to impact everything too?
Future expansion of hotel rooms would positively impact sales tax. The film center is very much an unknown quantity because most film sale tickets are not sales tax. We don't tax those from a sales tax. Like a movie ticket doesn't get taxed, just like an entertainment ticket doesn't get taxed. If you go to Fun City and ride the bumper boats, we don't tax that experience. So that piece of it is hard to guess at. The hotel expansion, if it comes to fruition, would certainly play a difference. But the property tax element of that is probably a bigger consideration for our property tax.
And I don't know what kind of sales taxes you get on construction, because every state does that slightly different. But sometimes you pay on materials but not labor. Sometimes you pay on neither. So I think knowing what the sales tax imposition of construction, because that's going to be a huge multi-year construction project that's going to affect everybody's budget in the valley somehow. We just don't really know how.
Does the fire district know how the property tax change is going to affect them at this point? I know the school, it's going to, between that and Fall River Village that we did, and the Stanley, property tax is going to kill the school district. Do y'all know yet? Have y'all looked at
We
how
haven't
it's going to
started our
change?
budget process
We
yet.
haven't started the
Okay.
process yet.
So
Okay.
it's going to be an eye-opening experience, I'm sure.
Sorry.
Is it? Can I generally ask, because I haven't heard the conversation with fire district? I know that the property tax, the mill levy is very low. I mean, setting records for how low and how fortunate this community is for a low property tax. It is probably ripe, or there's an opportunity to increase the property tax. But I wonder if there's going to be a conversation about raising taxes with the fire district for funding for whatever programs are coming up in a strategic plan, in a process that is underway in the future. This feels like a good time to work collaboratively with the town and say, I'm not saying the town needs more money, let's work together, but it feels like in conversations we've had in these meetings that there are some other needs. The fire district will at some point ask for more money. Is this a good time to clean up the relationship to leverage the ability or what the town offers and go to the community together to say, this is reasonable, to find support across the whole organization, this joint meeting, to find support between trustees, between fire district board, between district members, between the community, and make this a win versus piecing it together, because we've got to do something about funding for this police project. If the town does that, and then the fire district shows up in a year or two to say, we're gonna look at our own funding, it feels like we're missing an opportunity. And I think that that's why we're talking about this early for the fire district, but very timely for the town. It feels like a good time to work together to tell the community what they're gonna get for their money, for needs that are existing.
I think the chance of success is optimized by having the two
Working
groups
together.
work
I
together.
feel that.
I did have a question though. Is your budget calendar year?
I believe so, yeah? No, they did
Yeah.
just ended, it
Yeah,
is
it's
calendar
calendar.
year.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is, yeah. We haven't even started working on the budget yet. I mean, I see your point, and I think it always is an important idea when approaching voters to approach in a collaborative way, especially when you have multiple entities asking for money. And we're gonna be asking for money, it seems separately, which concerns me a bit, because if you go on ballot and you're seeking money for the police station, then we come along behind you and ask for also an increase in sales tax, and it's like, wait a minute, what? As opposed to us collectively saying, hey, between all these things, this is with a plan, right? It's not this piecemeal plan. We're not saying, here, give us this, and now, oh, by the way, here, give us this too. So that is something that we should discuss, and we should discuss among ourselves, and we should discuss collectively as well. But that's kind of my thinking.
I do think people lump the emergency services together, like just the people. I don't want to say lay people, but just people. I mean, nobody talks like there's a fireman and there's a policeman. You know, people talk about the emergency services. So there's the fire department, police department. I think there's a very huge respect for both, but I definitely think they lump it together. You know, dispatch lumped together. The emergency services lumped together. So I agree with you. I think that collaboration between the two of us, like I probably, before I was part of the town, maybe I wasn't that stupid, but I could think that I could not think the police department was part of under the town. I would think it was a separate, like, emergency services like the fire district was, whatever.
Yeah.
So I do think that people think of emergency services together. You call 911, who shows up? Police and firemen, not just firemen, not just police generally. So I do think there's that collaboration of what's together, and what's important to people is emergency services.
Well, I mean, it makes sense. That's why collaboration makes sense on some level, because we're talking about emergency services generally, police department, fire department, but we're going together to seek an amount that covers both, right? Which some would go here and some would go there. Yeah, and I'm not really a fan of the idea of piecemealing it.
And the flip side of that is appearing that we're pitting the fire department against the police department
Right.
for taxes. And that's a terrible perception in the voters, and practically it's a terrible perception. But that's the other side of that same coin.
It also puts us in a potentially awkward position if one of those passes and the others doesn't. You'd almost have to put contingency in there anyway,
Yeah.
such that if the police one passed and the fire district one didn't, because you had the out of city limits folks voting saying no, we don't want to pay more, you would have the same problem where, well, okay, we still have this need for a police facility. Our concerns on that front and the proposed timing on that front is driven mostly by pragmatic considerations. We're trying to move forward relatively quickly with the police financing, and I think it takes a little pressure off the fire district if that funding is already there and the voters have approved it on its merits, and it really says, well, if the fire district isn't successful, that's okay, because that funding is there if the voters think it's worthwhile to fund the police station. The fire district, if the sales tax doesn't come forward, that money will continue to go to the fire district. So it really insulates the fire district and allows voters to vote on each of those independently. Do we think that the town should have more money to fund a police station? Yes, well, we'll fund this here. We would love if the fire district can levy sales tax later knowing that the voters may say no to that because it's a different voting core, it's a broader electorate. My concern would be that we get to the election in November of 2026 and we have a split ballot, and for whatever reason we can't get financing for one of those other things, and we're a year down the road and we're already busting at the seams at the PD.
So the amount that you would save if the fire district went out and had their own sales tax, would that amount be enough to fund the new police station, or would you have to still go out to the voters to get more funds?
So we can fund the debt service on a police station with current assumptions, with the amount we currently send the fire district, plus 2 debt maturities that will come forward: the events complex debt, which will mature in 2027, and the parking garage debt that will mature 2030. 2033. So the way it's structured out, yes, the town can fund the debt service on this with the fire district. I think we'd have to come up with about 45 to 50,000 in ongoing revenue just out of our regular general fund budget, but we can do that.
But then we don't know how much that we would have to have in a sales tax in order to bring in the funds that we needed for current and future.
Correct. So we are, at least one trustee has asked if we could estimate using town resources and hopefully some help from our county participants, if we could estimate what it would take the fire district, what percentage sales tax it would take to replicate what you currently get from the town. So we're hoping to have some information to share with you all in the next week or so here. It really depends on what level of granularity the county maintains their records in, because they're going to be the entity that can best estimate what it would, what a percentage would return for the
and
fire
to account
district.
for increasing costs and expenses over time, right? I mean, you do have
What's that?
increases over time as well. I mean, increased expenses over time, just factoring in.
Yeah, and we have those same factors. So the nice thing about sales tax is that it typically
Shows up.
increases as expenses increase across the community. The double whammy is when things are not going well, it drops much more precipitously. So it is nice to have that property tax, sales tax balance, as Trustee Eibel mentioned a little earlier.
And I think that maybe a better question to ask would not be how do we replace what the town is allocating, but how much does the fire district need? What is the plan? What's 10 years, 20 years? How much is that going to cost? And plan for that now, and not replace what you're getting, but shoot for the future and figure out what that need. And I'm talking to people who are much smarter than I am here financially, but just to put that in perspective for someone I have to talk to tomorrow or next week, I think this has to be about the plan for the fire district for the future, and not just supporting them at that current level.
Well, I agree with that, but I also understand that in order to get something passed on the ballot, that you have to watch how much of a percentage increase you're going to have.
Sure.
So we can't put in a percentage increase that's so high that covers 10 years from now. It's not going to pass for now. So we have to weigh the odds.
The
What is
data
better?
and how it sells, and there's so many things. But property tax, is the mill levy something that needs to be looked at today? It's been a topic of conversation for 10 years about how sweet that is right now for property owners for the service that's being delivered.
And it is, but you can't go for both in the same year because neither one would pass.
But the conversation is coming for the community, and from a taxpayer's perspective, I realize the value.
But the fire district always have that option in the future.
Correct.
To go after a property tax increase.
Whatever it is,
we
even
want
if
to plan
it's
for success.
even if it's just a replacement, it would be less than the sales tax percentage that we spend now and dedicate to it, because it's a larger tax base.
Right.
Well,
So you-
presumably, if you
substantial.
had a fire initiative at some point, I mean, it's legal for the town board to pass a resolution in support.
But outside of town, and still within the district, really how much additional sales tax would we be getting? I mean,
You have to
a
figure
bulk
that
of
out.
it's gonna get coming from
Yeah,
town.
great question.
But
There's a
Amazon,
lot. There's a lot
Amazon's
of
helped a
From
lot.
a realistic standpoint.
Travis is working on that for me.
It,
There's a lot
it's
of
not
work to do.
it's not insignificant.
No.
So I think that's where the county data can come and help us, because they're the only subunit other than the state that would be able to break it down by. But there are some very large lodging and retail establishments outside of town limits.
Like I said, plus Amazon. I mean,
Amazon, car
Amazon
sales,
has been a
major
big chunk
appliance
for
sales, everything like that.
Is your district the same as one of the other special districts? Or are they all?
That's similar in certain areas, but like the hospital district's much larger. The
What about the
library district, I think, is larger. It's close to the recreation district, although the recreation district goes into Boulder County
Does.
as well. So
What about the visit us as part
They're
tax?
almost the same as the rec district.
They're the same as the rec district.
Oh, they're all a little different.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
some are a lot different.
Okay.
You can look at the map and overlaps and stuff.
So staff will continue to work with the county and potentially the state to see if we can come up with some guess that is based in good data to help inform the fire district board kind of what that delta might look like.
yeah, I think that's important. That's kind of a starting point, really.
Yeah.
Do some research.
I think it's more than you think.
Yeah, it's just a question in my
Particularly
mind,
with the
I know.
lodging. The lodging is a pretty big deal.
Right.
Lodgings.
What, and this, that doesn't really have totally to do with this conversation, but what is the current, because I know for a while there it was kind of changing, what is the current dispatch? Are we still dispatch for the
Yes.
fire? Okay, and then do y'all know how much, well, you know how much they pay us for that?
I don't have that on top of my head.
Okay,
It's just a few thousand.
oh, so it's not like, okay, it's not really significant.
20 or something.
I don't think it's.
Okay.
I don't want to speak of it.
Yeah, that's, it's not really significant, that's fine, it's, if it was big, huge, I was gonna make that part of the conversation.
And we're really glad.
It's not,
We want one dispatch.
That's a great relationship.
no, it's all good. I was like, well, if we built it, you can easily use it.
Well, we've got a couple action items so far, I know. Although I can't recap them off the top of my head, but Travis, do you have that little list?
I have a highlighted for ongoing discussion and consideration the question of whether to go together or separately, being a policy question and the various pros and cons of either of those options. Understanding and maybe providing, sounds like the fire board has a pretty good idea, but providing more information about what the materials behind that original election looked like and how that might have changed with the 2024 Senate bill that allowed fire districts to levy sales tax, making sure to have the best numbers that we can get about what that differential between the town sales tax and the county sales tax, or the fire district sales tax would be to levy the same amount of money, which would also inform the fire district's conversations about potentially asking for enhanced funding for future needs, depending on where your strategic plan lands.
I know that if we would have had that option to have sales tax when we formed the district, we would have gone that route.
Yeah.
Most definitely, but we
It
didn't
makes
have
the
that
most
option.
sense, yeah.
So,
This is a very recent, I thought it was 2022, and as I was doing research for this meeting today, it was 2024. So it just happened last legislative session.
right.
Right.
Well, I will personally always vote to support fire, to support police, to support EMS ambulance. You know, these are just critical, and for that matter, I like schools too. So, all of which make up our fabric. But we're a ways away from that. What other questions or any other considerations from an action item standpoint? Other research that should be done?
Do we know if are there any fire districts have taken advantage of this legislation yet?
It's a good question.
I haven't heard yet, so we certainly could look into that.
It'd be pretty quick
that's good.
turnaround.
Yeah, it would be,
Yeah.
because it is really new.
Since it was just in the last cycle.
Yeah.
The other thing we need to think about, though, if we do decide to go out at some point, however it's going to be, but what are other special districts doing, having special elections the same year? So, you know, whether that's the prime time to go or not, or whether you should delay or whatever, so you're not competing against other special districts that are going out for elections.
I
Or the
do think
county.
the Special District Association is putting on some kind of workshops around this in their next big gathering in, where is it, Park and Ridge or someplace. But I could investigate that too, or I think there's likely to be some really interesting material come out of that, and insight.
The timing is tough. It always is tough in a sales
Yeah.
You probably, some of you heard this story before, but at the county, we tried to expand the courthouse in the early 2000s. The first time we went out, it died. I mean, it just totally failed. And when we did the market research afterwards, it was the same summer as the OJ trial.
Oh.
And what we heard from voters in the focus groups was that our justice system is broken. We're not going to fund any more courts. We're not going to fund judges. We have no interest in spending any money on this stuff. Like, we had a lot of control of what happened in Los Angeles. The interesting thing is we went back again the next year and it passed. Did really well. Did the same thing. That year was the Oklahoma bombing trial. When Timothy McVeigh and the federal trial, they didn't mess around. It was none of this try on the glove TV stuff. Quick trial. He got the needle, and people said, you know what, the justice system in this country works, we need to support it. Two things that had nothing to do with Larimer County, nothing to do with our courthouse. Both of them had huge impacts on how the voters looked at things. So we can do all we want, but something in Dallas could affect our ability to pass a fire tax. So
Or vice versa. We, unfortunately, I don't want to have anything happen, but based on what the fire
That's
season
true.
looks like, it, could
we
be.
need to support it.
Yeah.
It's so hard to do those kind of things.
We have a completely different community now than when we formed the district. There's a lot of people come and go, and so it's a whole new population. And, there's some old people like me that are still here, but it's a lot different population.
We continue to have the highest, most mature population, we will say, 65 and over, 40% plus, which is way, way above all the Front Range, and the average in Colorado is 17% or something. Front
I do
Range
think that
is
last
15.
that last property tax election was actually encouraging to be that close. I mean, it would have been more encouraging if it passed.
It was 81, not 8. Mark corrected me there.
But still, it was very close.
It's still close.
I do, yeah, it was like 1,500 or 1,450 return votes or something like that. I do think, on that note, I think the key, and maybe this goes without saying, because this is why we're all sitting around this table kind of dumping our 2 cents into a pot, but I do think that this, whatever it is that we may come up with, has, in my opinion, has to have full support of our boards collectively, as well as the key players who may be at the table talking about the issue, volunteer base for the fire district, for example. I mean, we can't force people to support it one way or another, but that's the soul searching I personally want to do as we think about how this would be phrased in the package that we would be, presenting to the community is something that I can personally get on board with, because I think, watching how the last, the mill levy went, and, the fact that April's election will also be up for 3 seats on our town board, and that may become an issue that somebody campaigns on, is to say, government bloat, and I don't, they're just trying to get more money out of us, or, whatever it happens to be. So I think the strength of our board advocacy and the work that we can do in talking with constituents about what they may support or may not support in between now and developing that ballot language, I think, again, it probably goes without saying, but I can't imagine not going into this feeling like we've really done a lot of homework before we put something on the ballot.
I think that's a value meeting now.
Right.
Talking about it getting early, and my comments earlier about, think about the future fire district. You will need money. Let's talk about the big picture and get everybody in, and really go into it with a team of advocates that are invested. And I think that almost guarantees success. People trust people, and that word of mouth and that community support from leadership is going to translate to success.
Well, when we created the fire district, we had a collaborative effort because we had town board members on that committee to determine 7%. They're the ones that came up with that number. So it was we had volunteers on there. We had town board members. We had community members. Both live inside city limits and outside. So we had a broad base committee that come up with the whole fire district idea and the funding mechanism in the past. So it was a collaborative effort of the whole community to do that. So We've done it before, we can do it again.
Well, it feels like this is an educational
Yeah.
approach that we can take for success. I see this for the new board an opportunity. The fire district has so much opportunity. This is, I think, it's going to be the upcycle for everybody.
It's an evolution of our community too, that we have to evolve. It's not necessarily about change, but we've had to evolve to be able to accommodate what we need from a police side, from a fire side. The world has changed, the climate has changed. All of those pieces are requiring that we evolve, and it's not necessarily that I think that messaging around that piece of it is really key. That this is a demand really on us to problem solve.
If we're doing it with the best interest of the community at hand, and I have heard nothing but that. So that's something that I'm proud to get behind.
Other thoughts, questions, potential actions?
Does the police department like give tours or anything in there so people can see how crammed? I mean, I know you guys are crammed in there, but
5-minute tour.
just the reason why
Or
the reason I ask the question is because a lot of what I hear from people who live in town and in the county, in the district, fire district, is that they don't want to see the town taking up any more land.
You know, it's a really good thing about Tori. I didn't until you just said that. School district years ago when they came for their property tax on the school board, right? The reason it passed is they showed pictures of wires hanging off the building, unsafe conditions in the science room.
Communication.
I mean, that's the reason it passed. So you're right. If somebody saw a police station, I'd be like, oh, we need to do something here. So that's a really good thought.
So we do a coffee and tea at the PD every first Thursday every month. We offer up tours. We give tours as often as we can. We've been putting a lot of social media out on this, and then Kate Miller is also, which has recently been released, actually a whole video. I wouldn't know if I'd use the word documentary, but it's a video that's online right now that kind of walks you through the current state of the physical building and our needs, and where some very core needs aren't getting met by that. So I'm always open to more ideas, but we've been hitting that at least once a month, trying to offer those up in addition to just the routine things, such as the citizens or the community police academies and those kind of things also. But if there's another opportunity for that, we'll do that. And we also, as long as we have a law enforcement officer that's not on a call, which is becoming less and less common, especially in the summer. Right now, someone could walk up to the door and we'll give them a tour.
Okay. I have a lot of people that tell me they don't want to see the town taking up any more space. Surprisingly enough, I've had even friends of mine say, "Great, they need a new police station, so I guess they're going to raise our taxes for it." And I mean, I'm already hearing this out in public, so I'm just trying to see how we get past that for them to see the benefit to it. I see the benefit. I know you guys are packed in there like some sardines, but I just, like the video you're talking about, I've never seen it, never heard about it. I don't know if there's a better way to get that out to the public. I really don't know what the answer is, but it is a big concern of mine for us trying to get this passed right now. I just know there's a lot of people frustrated with paying too many taxes right now. So.
And then you have the whole issue with all your vehicles out there not secured.
In the video, and again, we'll get with Kate and see if there's some better ways to be marketing that exists, but we talk about that. We talk about, I'm very uncomfortable with the manner in which we bring arrestees into the building, especially if they're juveniles, because now nobody wants to see a juvenile get paraded through the public. Right. We address all those things in that video.
Right. Okay.
We've had the same thing with the fire district.
Yeah.
For most people, they don't have any exposure to the fire department or the police department, and said, "My house didn't burn down. I guess they're fine." So.
Well,
but when you have to get new trucks and people have no idea what it takes to get a new engine, what you guys go through, and that education for what the future needs are of the fire district, it has to be.
Well, and when the public needs the services come to them. They don't go to the services, so they're not likely to really have an opportunity to see these spaces, right?
And they don't think about them until they need them, and
Right.
most of us don't use them.
And it's not just the police department. You're right. It is the fire department too, because I will guarantee you there's probably 75% of this district that does not realize that we have another office. I didn't know until just a couple of years ago. And people need to be made aware. I mean, the two offices, that costs more money, you know? So maybe building a new facility for the police station or the fire station or whatever gets everybody into one building. It might even save money in the long run. It's just people not having the knowledge and them not wanting to come down and educate themselves. You have to take it to them somehow.
And it's a good reminder that we can talk about these kind of abstract moving pieces around all night, but ultimately we have to remember the primacy of the voters. None of this happens without voter approval, and it's incumbent on all of us, well, especially the police department, as we talk through this being the kind of instigating element. It's incumbent on us to educate the voters and really convince them that that this is going to cost you more money. That's a fact. This is not, it's not cheap to construct a brand new building, and this is why we think you should support that. And then at a certain point, they have to make a judgment call and vote with their pocketbook and their ballot.
Is there an idea of where a police station might go? Or is that a question for now or later?
Location.
I believe that was executive session where we talked about potential properties. So at this point, not public, although we do have, we're looking in that direction.
You know, the important part for both of them is not that it's, if people look at it, well, I don't want to spend more taxes, I don't want to spend more taxes. Well, I don't want to spend more money on groceries, and I don't want to spend more money on gas either.
Right.
What I want is a return on my investment. So what both of our entities have to do is show people, why is this a good investment in a community? How does this protect me and my family? What does this mean to me? To say, you know, that the fire department has the most up-to-date equipment, or I don't have to worry for them trying to get through town to get to my house because they've got something stationed somewhere else. I don't know what the future brings for the fire district, but the discussion needs to be about what's the value you're getting for the money, not just what the money is. And it's that way with anything.
That's a good point, Frank,
And they need to be able to relate it, like you said, to them.
Yeah, because I'm happy to spend the money if I get some value out of it.
they have to see what it means to them.
Exactly.
You know, if it means something to them, then they're going to vote for it. But you would hope people would be more open to what's good for the whole organization or the public. But it really comes down to what's good for them, and that's when they go to vote. And that's what we've kind of found in the past.
Right.
And that's a hard thing to get people to see.
It is.
Being in construction, you have people all the time. Well, why did it cost that much to dig a hole? Well, because that machine that picked that rock up to sell you a pickup costs $500,000. You know, and people don't think of it that way. They think, well, you were only here for a week.
Yeah.
So.
And the
Or you were
insurance on
only
that vehicle.
you were only at my house fire one time for a night, but they don't realize that you still have to maintain that throughout the whole year.
Right.
Education.
Yeah.
And then when they age out, the cost of replacing them or repairing them,
Yeah.
it's huge. Right?
So selling them on their return of investment is going to be the best way to do this.
Okay.
Kind of sounds like we need to get some information.
It does, yeah.
Yeah, there'll be some collection and sharing of that, and we don't necessarily have the next touch point as to when we might get together, but I think we can share any public information that we come up with is easily shareable across the two groups. So.
I know that you guys, it's not public yet, but maybe when you're having your meetings, you decide whether you can advertise where a new police station would be. That would maybe make people, okay, well, it's already their land. They're not taking up more space in the town. Or if it is an outside space, it's something that's been empty. I don't know how you go about it, but I feel like sharing that information with the public is going to be huge.
Yeah, and I agree. The sooner you can get to that, obviously you don't want to interrupt negotiations on
Right.
property or something. I will say that, and we've talked this publicly a few times, that the Bureau of Reclamation land down near the power plant, near the fire station, looks like an impossibility
Right.
in the work with the Bureau of Reclamation. So that does not seem like a reasonable path, even though it had that wonderful thought of combining the three emergency services as a potential. But that one looks very low likelihood in my lifetime.
And I agree with you on, you don't want to interrupt negotiations and stuff, and you want to get it handled because we all know if it becomes public of what the town is trying to buy, the prices go up tremendously. So
Funny how that works.
But people don't want to pay more. for
Right.
it.
Well, right. Exactly.
They want to get more.
Right.
But yeah, the sooner the better in
Yeah.
terms of taking the cloak off. So.
We've got a number of follow-up items. I would offer if any of the board or staff have additional questions that we may be able to assist with, the more information that we can gather and distribute early on in this process, the better. So don't hesitate to reach out as we work through these next steps. And then once we have that information all gathered up, we'll send something to both boards through respective staff.
Okay, we good?
When is your budget start?
I want to say September. Is
We
that
usually
is that
start
August.
end of
August,
August or
End
so.
of August,
We're
early
starting
September.
working on it, budget
Yeah.
sessions, and it has to be to the county by the 15th of December.
Right.
So,
I think that's all the special tax
Yeah.
districts.
That, beginning of September, maybe.
But we
or
need to
end
have
of
it.
August.
Yeah.
yeah, we haven't even started that.
We have
yet,
not.
so.
We've had other things to deal with.
Yes, you do. Okay. Well, with that being said, this meeting is adjourned.
Thank
All
you.
right, thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, IT.
We could get a word in edgewise once we got Ian to get fired.
I didn't do that.
He is quite chatty, isn't he?
Yes, chatty Cathy over there.